Azrael hovered at the edge of the mortal world, invisible to all, but those he was tasked to guide. Light shimmered along the edges of his wings, soft and ethereal, a contrast to the darkness of the city streets below. He had walked among humans for centuries, unseen and untouchable, a guardian of souls, a whisper of divine mercy. Celine was unlike anyone he had ever guided. There was a fire in her step, a defiance in her gaze that made his wings tighten, made his pulse, the pulse of a being who had never known need, stir in ways he had thought impossible. He watched her navigate the chaos of the city, rescuing stray animals, helping the homeless, speaking words that carried courage even when the world ignored them. Day after day, Azrael found himself lingering longer than he should. He was supposed to protect, guide, intervene only when necessary. He was not supposed to desire. And yet, desire flared in him, subtle at first. A longing for her laughter, the tilt of her head in thought, the way she carried warmth even in the coldest alley. One night, as a storm raged and lightning split the sky, Azrael descended fully, unseen, to guide her away from a collapsing building. Celine slipped on the wet stone, and his hand, unbidden, shot forward. He caught her. The warmth of her body pressed against his chest, and he felt it, the shock of connection that went beyond mortal touch. Her eyes, wide with fear, met his. There was no recognition of him as an angel, only trust, only the human instinct to rely on another. "Thank you," she whispered, trembling. Azrael's wings folded instinctively, his own breath catching. "You must be careful," he said softly. "The world, it can be cruel." Her gaze lingered, curious and open. And in that instant, the line he had never been allowed to cross blurred. Days became weeks. Azrael lingered at street corners, in libraries, even in the small cafes she frequented, always careful to remain unseen, always careful to remain just a shadow. Yet shadows have weight, and weight grows over time. He found himself imagining her smile at the end of a long day, the curve of her hands as she cooked, the laugh that followed even the smallest joke. Then one night, as the city slept beneath a heavy fog, he found himself beside her on a quiet bridge, the river below churning with storm runoff. She had not seen him approach, but neither did she pull away. "Do you ever feel tired of following rules?" she asked, not to him, but aloud, as though speaking to the universe. Azrael's heart, an alien, untested thing, stirred. He wanted to answer, to tell her yes, to tell her everything. But the words faltered. Perhaps, he said finally, a whisper carried by the wind. "Sometimes even the divine longs to be free." Celine turned. The eyes that had always seemed so steady widened in surprise. And yet she smiled, a smile that pierced centuries of caution and discipline. Weeks later, hidden in the quiet of a mortal night, Azrael revealed himself fully. Not as a guardian, not as a shadow, but as a being capable of love, of risk, of error. "I cannot follow the path I was meant to," he confessed. "I have been distracted by you, and I have fallen. For you, Celine. I cannot undo this. I do not wish to." Her hand reached for his, trembling, small against the strength of an immortal being. "And what happens now?" she asked. "Now," he said, voice thick with a mix of fear and longing, "we choose our own path." They married in secret beneath the silver light of a crescent moon, their vows whispered in the wind, unobserved by heaven but binding nonetheless. Azrael felt the first thrill of mortal life, the sharp, reckless, intoxicating joy of choosing love over duty. And in that choice, he unknowingly sowed the seeds of both his greatest happiness and unknowingly, his deepest suffering. He felt an exhilaration unlike any he had known. It was the pure, unbridled joy of love, the thrill of choosing the heart over duty, the intoxicating certainty that some things were worth all the pain the universe could inflict. He held Celine close, feeling her warmth seep into him. Every laugh they shared, every tender glance, every moment of intimacy became a treasure forged in defiance. It was a happiness born not of comfort, but of rebellion. A happiness that shimmered with brilliance precisely because it was forbidden. And yet, woven into that joy was an ache he could not ignore. Each heartbeat of contentment was accompanied by the knowledge that the path he had chosen carried consequences beyond imagining. The very love that gave him joy also opened him to grief that would pierce the depths of his soul. Every choice after that, the days of marriage, the joys of quiet mornings and shared nights, carried a double edge. Each kiss, each laugh, each moment of triumph was shadowed by the knowledge that fate, heaven, and mortality themselves could demand a price he might not survive. In that choice, Azrael realized the profound truth. To love fully was to risk everything. To embrace joy was to invite sorrow. And to live in defiance of duty was to carry both the ecstasy of forbidden love and the terror of inevitable loss. He could not have known at that moment which of these forces would dominate his life. Whether happiness would endure, whether grief would consume, whether redemption or despair awaited, but he chose nonetheless. It was a choice that made him profoundly human, even as he remained divine, and it marked the beginning of a journey that would stretch across centuries, bind him to the deepest love of his life, and ultimately lead him to a perfection only earned through suffering, sacrifice, and the courage to follow the heart. The weeks passed in a blur of whispered breaths and quiet nights. Celine's body changed with the gentle inevitability of life, her belly rounding, her eyes shining with an unfamiliar softness. Azrael watched over her, ever vigilant, yet the vigilance he once gave to the mortal world faltered. His mind drifted constantly toward her, toward the warmth of her hands on his chest, the way her hair smelled after a day of rain, the subtle quiver in her voice when she spoke of nothing at all. He had come to understand that love could be as consuming as fire, and as dangerous. He began neglecting the careful guidance he was meant to offer, his divine duties slipping like water through his fingers. Souls in need went unseen for hours. Minor disasters unfolded that he should have prevented. And yet, he could not tear himself away from Celine's side. One night, as they lay together beneath the canopy of stars, Celine's hand brushed his cheek. "Do you regret any of this?" she asked softly. Azrael's wings, normally invisible, flickered in the faint moonlight. He had tried to hide them, to act mortal in every way he could, but the truth of his being always surfaced. "I regret nothing," he whispered. "Not you, not this life, not a single heartbeat I have spent with you, but I fear I am failing in other ways, in ways I cannot fully control." Celine leaned into him. "Then we'll face it together." And in that night, as the wind whispered across their home, the first faint echoes of Irinda stirred. Irinda is born. The birth was quiet but miraculous. Celine's cries filled the room as Azrael hovered near, feeling every emotion intensely. When the child was placed in his mother's arms, Azrael saw something unusual. The infant's eyes shone with an otherworldly light, subtle but unmistakable. Even as a newborn, Irinda radiated a presence that was not wholly mortal. He gazed at his son, heart swelling with awe and fear. "He is perfect," Celine whispered, brushing the damp hair from his forehead. "He is ours." Azrael knew the truth that Celine did not. Their son was a being born of love between mortal and divine, a fusion that should not exist. He could feel the power thrumming faintly beneath the child's skin, a warning of what was to come. Heaven notices. Azrael tried to contain his distraction, but the ineffable eyes of heaven are patient and unrelenting. One evening, as he lingered by the window watching Celine cradle Irinda, a voice thundered in his mind. "Azrael." You were chosen to guide, to protect, to obey. You have strayed. You have fallen into desire. Cease this indulgence at once, or face the consequences. Azrael fell to his knees, wings trembling. I cannot. I will not abandon them, he whispered. I cannot undo love, nor the life we have created. The reply came like ice through his soul. You have been warned. You will be recalled. You will answer for this defiance. The weight of heaven's judgment pressed down upon him. Every angelic instinct, every memory of eternal duty screamed at him to comply, to correct his path. And yet, his heart would not yield. The bond he had forged with Selene and the infant Irinda was stronger than any command. The first signs of conflict. As weeks turned to months, Azrael's vigilance over the mortal world slackened further. Small disasters went unheeded. Fires, floods, and crime occurred where he might have intervened. Every time he sensed danger, his first thought was of Selene and Irinda, not the souls he was tasked to protect. Irinda, even as a toddler, began to show glimpses of his extraordinary nature. Objects would move subtly when he was upset. Shadows bent in unusual patterns when he played. Azrael watched in both pride and fear, knowing that the child carried the consequences of their forbidden love in every heartbeat. He began to fear the day when heaven would arrive, when the consequences of his choice would manifest fully. But even fear was powerless against the longing in his chest. He loved them both too deeply, and in that love, he found the strength to endure the warnings, the sense of looming punishment, and the gnawing guilt that shadowed his immortal soul. Azrael awoke to a light that was neither sunlight nor moonlight, but something purer, harsher, and impossibly vast. He felt the familiar hum of heaven vibrating through his chest, a resonance he had not sensed since leaving the divine realm. A voice, vast and unyielding, echoed through him. Azrael, your time is over. You have been warned, yet you continue to defy. Your heart has strayed. You have loved beyond reason. Come now, and answer for your choices. Fear, a sensation he had almost forgotten in mortal life, gripped him. He felt the pull, the irresistible tug toward the light above. And yet, the thought of leaving Selene and Irinda made his chest tighten in a way no mortal heart could endure. The transition was instantaneous. One moment, he was kneeling by the hearth of his home, feeling Selene's warmth and Irinda's small hand clutch his finger. The next, he was suspended in a void of light, standing before the vast assembly of angels, their gazes as penetrating as sunlight on ice. You were entrusted with the guidance of mortals, intoned the archangel Metatron, his voice like thunder in the hollow of Azrael's chest. Instead, you have pursued your own desire. You have married a human. You have sired a child whose very existence threatens the balance of the mortal and divine realms. Azrael's wings, still faintly glowing, trembled. I did not abandon my duty, he said. I protected those in need. I only chose love. I could not forsake them. Metatron's eyes, impossibly bright, narrowed. Love is no excuse for defiance. You have broken the sacred law of heaven. And for this, you are recalled. You will be stripped of your office unless you perform the one act required of you. Azrael's heart faltered. What act? He whispered, dread pooling like ice in his stomach. The eradication of your mortal attachments, Metatron said, each word deliberate, echoing in the void. Your wife. Your child. Only then may you be restored to your duties. Only then may the bonds of heaven remain intact. The words hit him like lightning. The room seemed to twist. Time slowed. Selene's laughter, Irinda's soft cries as a toddler, the quiet nights they had spent together. They all rose before him like a tidal wave. "No," Azrael choked. I cannot. I will not harm them. I cannot undo my love." Metatron's wings flared, immense and blinding. "Then you are cast down. You are no longer an angel. You will live as a mortal, bound to those you love, and you will endure the consequences of your choices. No celestial being may aid you. You are removed from heaven's grace until the end of your mortal life." Azrael fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. The light of heaven, which had always felt like home, now felt like a distant memory, cold and unreachable. He bowed his head, acknowledging the weight of his failure, not as a punishment, but as the inevitable consequence of choosing love over duty. And yet, even in that despair, he made his choice. He refused the decree. He refused to kill Selene or Irinda. The consequences were absolute, the penalty eternal. And yet, he would not betray the very hearts that had given his existence new meaning. Banished from heaven. Azrael felt his wings falter, fade, and vanish. The luminous glow of his being dimmed until he stood as a mortal man once more, stripped of celestial power, stripped of divine authority. The void around him disappeared, and he found himself back on Earth, beside the home he had built, the streets quiet and waiting, life unchanged yet irrevocably altered. He sank to the ground, gripping the earth, feeling the weight of mortality pressing down upon him like a physical thing. He had chosen love, and in doing so, had been severed from the celestial realm forever. No angel would aid him. No divine light would guide his path. And yet, amidst the pain, there was a strange clarity. For the first time, his existence felt utterly his own. Every choice, every suffering, every joy would be earned, not commanded. He rose, brushing the dust from his knees. Selene's door creaked, and he saw her, unaware of the storm that had just passed in the heavens, waiting for him as always. Irinda toddled behind her, eyes shining with life and curiosity, blissfully mortal, or so it seemed. Azrael knelt and embraced them both, feeling the mortal warmth he had chosen over divine perfection. His tears fell freely, for he understood the road ahead would be long, painful, and unrelenting. He had been stripped of heaven, yet he had chosen love, and that choice, he realized, was the greatest act of courage any being, mortal or immortal, could perform. The years stretched out like an endless horizon, filled with ordinary moments and extraordinary consequences. Azrael awoke each day to the weight of mortality, to the aches of bones that no longer bore celestial strength, and to the rhythm of a heart that beat with a fragility he had never known. And yet, in that fragility, he discovered the profound depth of existence. Selene remained the anchor of his world. Her laughter, no longer a fleeting sound, became the rhythm of their home. She cooked with the patience of someone who had learned to survive, tended their small garden with devotion, and read to Irinda in the quiet hours of the morning. Every glance, every touch, reminded Azrael of the choice he had made, a choice that had stripped him of heaven but given him a family. Irinda grew fast. As a child, he was curious beyond measure, questioning the world with an intensity that sometimes startled Azrael. Objects shifted subtly when he was upset, shadows seemed to bend toward him, and lights flickered unpredictably in his presence. Azrael watched with awe, pride, and fear. This child, born of mortal and divine love, was a being unlike any other. One evening, Irinda, then no more than 6, knocked over a candle. Flames licked the wooden floor, yet before they could spread, they bent away from the boy as if respecting some invisible boundary. Azrael knelt beside him, eyes wide. "Do you understand what you can do?" he asked softly. Irinda shook his head, tears rolling down his cheeks. "I didn't mean it," he whispered. "You are learning," Azrael said. "Power is never evil. Misused, it can harm. But if guided with love, it can protect." The lesson was repeated countless times. Every moment of guidance was a penance of its own, teaching a child with abilities that could frighten the world, raising him with morality that even angels sometimes struggle to uphold. City disasters and mortal struggle. Life was not gentle with them. The city around them teetered between chaos and beauty. Fires swept through blocks of apartments. Torrential rains flooded streets. Crime festered where authorities failed. Azrael moved constantly, saving neighbors, helping rebuild homes, preventing disasters wherever he could, but always limited by the fragile boundaries of human flesh. Each disaster was a reminder of what he had lost. He could no longer intervene with a thought, a whisper, a flap of wings. He could only act with mortal limitations, and each time, his heart trembled at the knowledge that a small delay could cost lives. Celine, ever resilient, carried her own burdens with grace. She comforted neighbors, fought bureaucracies, and raised Arinda with determination and love. Together, the small family survived, bonded by shared struggle and mutual devotion. Love, intimacy, and reflection. Amid the hardships, Azrael and Celine found moments of tenderness that grounded them. He would hold her close at night, feeling the warmth of her body against his, listening to her heartbeat, memorizing its rhythm as if it were a song he could never forget. "Do you ever regret it?" Celine asked once, her head resting against his chest, her fingers tracing patterns on his arm. Azrael shook his head, though his voice quivered. "Not for a moment," he whispered. "Even knowing what the world will throw at us, even knowing what may come, I would choose this love again." And yet, in the quiet, he reflected on the choices that had brought him here. He had fallen from grace, defied heaven, and embraced mortality. His mind returned to the decree he had refused, the impossible order to kill Celine and Arinda. The thought was a shadow over every joy, a reminder that love and duty could clash with a violence that left scars even in eternity. Arinda's growth. As Arinda matured into adolescence, his powers became more pronounced. He could heal small wounds, manipulate light and shadow, and move objects with a thought. He learned restraint under Azrael's guidance, but the potential for destruction was always present. Neighbors began to notice strange phenomena around the family. A fire that stopped spreading, a flood that receded before reaching homes, animals drawn to the family as if sensing something beyond the mortal realm. Whispers followed them, though no one suspected the truth, that Arinda was a child of divine lineage, raised in a human world by a father who had sacrificed eternity for love. Azrael felt the weight of his choices every day. He had chosen love over duty, yet he could see the ripples of his defiance stretching into the world around them. He prayed quietly, not for forgiveness, but for guidance in raising a child whose very existence challenged heaven's laws. Foreshadowing the climax. Despite the beauty of their mortal life, a sense of unease lingered. The world remained dangerous, unpredictable, and merciless. Azrael could sense the inevitability of tragedy, the cruel tests that fate and heaven alike would bring. Yet, amidst every storm, every struggle, and every fleeting moment of despair, there was hope. There was laughter. There was love. And Azrael clung to it, knowing that the bonds he had chosen, though mortal, were stronger than any celestial mandate. He had fallen, been cast down, endured punishment, and yet in this mortal existence, he discovered the true weight of love and sacrifice. Every day, every heartbeat, was a penance and a blessing. And somewhere in the distance, the world was watching, waiting for the moment when choices would collide with destiny, and the consequences of love, defiance, and mortality would reach their apex. The morning had begun like any other. Sunlight filtered softly through the trees, painting Celine's garden in gold. Birds chirped as if unaware of the weight of the world, of the fragile lives they accompanied. Azrael stood at the edge of the driveway, watching Arinda practice his control over the shadows, and Celine tending to her flowers, her laugh drifting across the air. And then it happened. A screech of tires, a violent crash, the world turning upside down in an instant. Azrael ran, wings long faded but instincts sharp, yet no mortal speed could match fate. He reached the wreckage moments too late. Smoke and twisted metal filled the air. And in that moment he saw them. Celine, motionless, blood streaking her hair. Arinda, small and still, his eyes dimmed of the strange light that had once radiated so brightly. No, no, no. Azrael's scream tore through the air, a sound that carried both mortal grief and angelic despair. He fell to his knees, shaking the bodies he could not awaken. The world had taken them in the blink of an eye, and for the first time in centuries, Azrael felt the full weight of human fragility. He carried them to the small home they had built together, cradling them as the city went on unaware of the tragedy that had struck a single family. He wept with a sorrow that was infinite, not just for the loss of life, but for the mistakes, the forbidden love, the choices that had led to this day. Azrael's reflection. 4 nights that followed, Azrael wandered the city, a broken man among humans. He mourned, yes, but he also reflected on everything that had led him here. The choice to love, the refusal to obey a divine decree, the years of mortal struggle, the joys of family, the pain of power and responsibility. He understood now that love, even in defiance of heaven, had given him more depth than any angelic life ever could. He spoke to the silent heavens above, his voice low and reverent. I chose love over duty, he whispered, and I suffered. I have failed, yet I have endured. I seek no reward, no pardon, only the knowledge that I did what I could, as best I could, for those I loved. Azrael's death and penance. Time passed, and mortality's toll became undeniable. His body, once strong, weakened with age and grief. Every breath was a reminder that he had abandoned immortality for the sake of love. And yet, even in the decay of the flesh, his spirit remained strong, steadfast, and penitent. One evening, as the sun set with a crimson glow, Azrael lay beneath the stars, feeling the cold earth beneath him. He closed his eyes and let the final breath escape, a whisper of a life lived fully, painfully, and with profound love. And then, the light returned. Not as punishment, not as fear, but as forgiveness. A voice, warm and encompassing, spoke to him. Azrael, you have suffered, you have loved, you have endured. Your penance is complete. You may return. His wings, once mortal shadows, flared anew, radiant and resplendent. The weight of centuries of guilt, grief, and love lifted from his shoulders. Heaven welcomed him back, not as the fallen angel who had defied, but as a being who understood the depth of compassion, sacrifice, and choice. The hopeful ending. Years later, though Azrael could no longer walk among his mortal family, the memory of Celine and Arinda remained. He saw them in the sun that broke through clouds, in the laughter of children in the streets, in acts of kindness that seemed too human for an angel to ignore. He realized that love, though fleeting in mortal time, left a mark eternal. It shaped him, refined him, and proved that even in the face of impossible choices, goodness could persist. Evil did not prevail. The city, humanity, and even the divine understood that courage could take the form of defiance, and that love, pure and unwavering, was a force stronger than any law of heaven. Azrael's tears fell once more, not in sorrow, but in gratitude. He had loved, he had lost, he had endured, and he had been redeemed. In the echo of Celine's laughter, in the distant sparkle of Arinda's light. He found hope, the hope that life, even when cruel, could be beautiful beyond measure. And so Azrael watched over the mortal world once more, not as a guardian in command, not as a flawless angel, but as one who had truly lived, truly loved, and truly understood what it meant to be both mortal and divine. His heart carried the weight of every tear he had shed for Selene and Arinda, every moment of fear, every sleepless night of doubt. He remembered the first time he held them, the innocence in their eyes, the fragile warmth of their tiny hands in his, and the unbearable grief of losing them. Yet with that weight came clarity. Every choice he had made, every defiance, every act of love, had shaped him into something beyond the pure perfection of angelic obedience. He understood now the fragility and the courage of mortals, the immense value of life that could be lost in an instant, and the depth of devotion required to endure suffering without despair. As the light of heaven embraced him, he fell to his knees, humbled and shaken. Tears streamed down his face, not of sorrow alone, but of profound gratitude. He whispered prayers not for himself, but for the mortals he had loved, for the lessons he had learned, and for the grace he had been granted. "Creator," he said, voice trembling, "I have failed. I have fallen. I have loved when I should have obeyed. And yet, I have endured. I have suffered. I have learned. I ask only to serve, to atone, and to give what guidance I can with humility and devotion." A warmth spread through him, unlike any sensation he had ever known as a mortal. The presence of the Creator was no longer a distant command, but an intimate, enveloping embrace. It was a recognition of his remorse, yes, but also an acknowledgement of his growth, of the wisdom earned through love, loss, and penance. Azrael felt a joy he could scarcely describe, the pure, radiant happiness of being restored, not because he had avoided punishment, but because he had embraced life, accepted its pain, and emerged with a soul refined and strengthened. For the first time since his fall, he understood what it truly meant to serve, not out of obligation, not as a duty imposed, but as a willing offering of love, respect, and humility. And as he rose to his full height, wings now brighter and stronger than before, he looked down upon the mortal world with eyes that had seen both suffering and beauty. He knew his presence would never again be perfect, never again untouched by human emotion, but it would be real, compassionate, and wise. He smiled softly, feeling the weight of his past choices settle like a mantle of honor rather than a burden. And in that smile, heaven itself seemed to echo with approval, a recognition that sometimes the greatest service comes not from flawless obedience, but from a heart that has truly lived, truly loved, and truly learned the cost and the gift of being mortal. Azrael knelt in silent reverence, a tear sliding down his cheek, and whispered, "Thank you, Creator, for letting me return. Thank you for letting me serve, even after I strayed. I will never take this grace for granted again." In that moment, he felt whole, a profound completeness that brings renewal from guilt and fear from that one lustful desire. Every heartbreak, every loss, every trembling moment of fear and doubt now settled within him like polished stones in a riverbed, scarred, worn, yet beautiful in their permanence. He thought of Selene, of the warmth of her hand in his, of her laughter echoing through their mortal home. He remembered the nights he had watched over Arinda, guiding him, teaching him, fearing for him, praying that the power within the boy would never harm what was innocent. And though he had failed to protect them from fate's cruelty, he realized that loving them, even for the briefest moment, had made his life richer than eternity alone ever could. A soft breeze carried through the celestial expanse, brushing against him as if heaven itself acknowledged his journey. He could feel every lesson etched into his soul, the price of defiance, the depth of devotion, the courage of choosing love over obedience, and the humility born of suffering. For the first time, he understood that wholeness was not the absence of mistakes or the attainment of perfection. It was the acceptance of all that he had been, all that he had done, and all that he had loved. It was the ability to stand again in the light of his Creator, not unblemished, but tempered, refined, and unwavering in purpose. Azrael closed his eyes and let the fullness of the moment wash over him. He could feel the hum of the mortal world below, hear its joys and sorrows, its quiet miracles and small triumphs, and he knew he would serve it with compassion tempered by experience. For he was no longer merely an angel of command, nor a being of detached divinity. He was one who had loved fiercely, erred deeply, and endured with a heart both human and divine. And in that understanding, he felt peace. Every fragment of regret was transmuted into wisdom. Every pang of sorrow had become empathy. Every tear he had shed for loss and longing now shimmered within him like starlight, a mosaic of memory and meaning that made him complete. He spread his wings, feeling their full strength, feeling again the light of heaven wash over him in a brilliance that was no longer intimidating, but welcoming. And as he rose into the skies, a quiet, unshakable joy filled him, a joy rooted in humility, tempered by experience, and deepened by love. In that moment, Azrael was not just an angel returned. He was a soul fully alive, a being who had walked through fire and shadow, and emerged whole, radiant, and ready to serve with a heart that understood the true meaning of grace.